some pretty messed up scandals that the government doesn't want us to know about.
From top secret experiments to government conspiracies, we've unearthed some of the darkest things that the government is keeping secret from us.
Hey everyone, what's up? I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan.
And I'm Brie Room. You might know me from Viper Girl. If you don't, go subscribe over there.
Go check it out, please. We did it at the same time. And now let's get into the video, which is top 10 dark scandals that the government is trying to hide.
At number 10, Project MK-Ultra. In the years following World War II and into the Cold War with the Soviet Union, the United States government was obsessed with protecting their citizens from outside threats, one of those threats being Soviet mind control. Project MK-Ultra was approved in 1953, and though it was originally designed to keep up with the Soviet Union's presumed advances in mind control, things escalated into illegal drug testing on Americans. The project was intended to study the use of biological and chemical materials to alter a person's mind and behavior, and how substances could be manipulated to enhance the effect of intoxication, induce hypnosis, produce amnesia, withstand torture, and many other behavioral outcomes. This project became a huge scandal over the government's abuse of human rights, as it was discovered that many of the project's subjects were people who, quote, couldn't fight back. People like prisoners with a history of addiction, sex workers, and people with terminal illnesses were recruited to be part of MK-Ultra. MK-Ultra was a header for over 160 different sub-projects, but after the government ended the program, almost all of its records were destroyed. No one really knows the extent of the program, but one thing is for certain, this scandal is one that the government does not want us to know about.
Coming in at number 9, we have the NSA spying scandal. I'm sure you all have heard about this by now, but it was a huge scandal that the government was trying to hide for the longest time. Had it not been for Edward Snowden, former contractor for the CIA, maybe we would have never found out about this. But basically, it was revealed that the NSA was collecting phone records of millions of Americans. In August of 2013, it was revealed that the government collects pretty much all international email and text communication which cross the US borders. A lot of people felt like their privacy was being violated by this. Now, at first, the government denied all claims of this. Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, told the US Senate that they did not willingly collect information on millions of Americans. But this was a lie, because later the agency admitted to doing so. A couple years ago, in a white paper, the NSA said that they collect telephony metadata in bulk, but they do not target American citizens. But many are convinced that the American government is just saying this to make it sound like what they are doing is okay. In reality, they are spying on people daily and don't want us to know about it.
You think we have it rough today with people thinking that there are microchips in our masks and people thinking that the birds work for the bourgeoisie, but back during the Cold War era, there was some real shady stuff going on in the media, including media propaganda and wiretapping. Operation Mockingbird and Project Mockingbird were two scandals operated by the CIA in order to influence the public's view of the American government, as well as identify anyone who was leaking government secrets to the media. Many journalists were spied on by CIA agents, and in declassified documents released in 2007, it was discovered that many people had their homes and workplaces wiretapped because they had been in contact with high-ranking government officials. These projects sort of went hand in hand and is seen by many as the government's attempt at mass population control. There's actually a surprisingly small amount of information available to really explain in depth what these scandals were, and other than some declassified documents, the whole project really remains quite secretive to this day, which makes people wonder what other information is still hidden. There are some people who even claim that Operation Mockingbird still exists to this day.
In our 7th spot, we have the infected blood scandal. Back in April of 1991 in France, doctor and journalist Anne-Marie Casteret published a very shocking article. She exposed that the National Blood Transfusion Center in France was knowingly distributing blood products that was contaminated with HIV. This happened between 1984 to 1985. The main people affected by this were hemophiliacs, and it caused a multinational outbreak of HIV and hepatitis C. It is said that 6,000 to 10,000 hemophiliacs were affected in the US alone. In France, 4,700 people were contaminated. Over 300 people passed away as a result. This scandal was huge. It ended up affecting other big countries too, like Canada, Japan, Ireland, Italy, and the UK. The government was being scrutinized for this because they delayed the approval of an American screening test that detects HIV in blood. As a result, 3 former government doctors were convicted. They knew the blood was infected and they still distributed it. In the end, they were charged with manslaughter.
At number 6, Project A119. The United States government once planned to blow up the moon. I'll just let that resonate a bit. Yeah, there was a legitimate plan to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon. Why? Because they were losing the space race to the Soviets. In 1958, the US was trying to come up with a way to one-up the Soviets as they had just launched the first ever satellite, Sputnik 1. Though the US wasn't too far behind launching their own satellite a few months later, they had nothing else to follow up with, and so someone had the brilliantly stupid idea of blowing up the moon. The mission became known as Project A119, and the idea was to send a nuclear bomb to space and detonate it in a crater on the moon. This project was a two-pronged plan to both study the effects of a nuclear explosion on the moon, but also to demonstrate the US's nuclear power to the world. Clearly, this project was scrapped because the moon remains intact, but this scandal remained unknown until 2000, when the documents were declassified. No one talks about Project A119, probably because it was a dumb idea to begin with.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the moon landing, so we're continuing on this moon route. Okay. This one is a conspiracy, but I thought I would just throw it on the list anyways. Basically, it was believed by some that the US government faked the moon landing. They did this because they were desperate to beat the Russians in the space race. The biggest piece of evidence that support this is a film of astronaut Buzz Aldrin planting a flag on the moon. The footage shows that the flag is waving in the wind, which is impossible because there's no wind on the moon. Other people claim that the boots that Neil Armstrong wore in space don't match the footprint that he left on the moon. So they believe that the moon landing was faked and that it was filmed in some film set, or some even believe that it was filmed in Area 51. Honestly, who knows? But if it was fake, then the government is doing a pretty good job at convincing us that it was real.
At number 4, the X-37B. The X-37B spaceplane is enigmatic to say the least. Other than having a name that sounds an awful lot like Elon Musk's son's name, it is also a super top secret spacecraft that people know very little about. Manufactured by Boeing for the US Air Force, this big beautiful thing is an unmanned reusable aircraft that is capable of spending an extended period of time in space, where it apparently conducts scientific experiments. Other than the information I've just given you, we don't know much else about this spacecraft or what it does. On May 17th, 2020, the Air Force did a live stream allowing viewers to watch the spacecraft take off, but shortly after it left the ground, the stream was cut out, and everyone was left wondering why. In the past, viewers have been able to watch space launches in its entirety as the craft leaves the Earth, but the X-37B is different. The launch live stream was cut out because of the space plane's extreme secrecy, more specifically its capability. After the stream was over, ULA CEO Tory Bruno addressed the sudden cut where he said, quote, "It's a classified mission, and what is classified about it is the details of the vehicle itself, the mission it will do on orbit, and where it will do that. Therefore, we have to stop the live broadcast so that we do not make it easy for adversaries to figure out those things by having that much data about the flight and deployment." End quote. Obviously, there are people out there who think that there is more to this than meets the eye, more specifically alien involvement, but you guys be the judge.
In our 3rd spot, we have the mass disappearance. This next scandal that I'm about to share with you is absolutely terrifying. So back in September of 2014, a group of about 100 students from a teacher training college attended a protest in the town of Iguala. It was about a 2-hour drive away, and they had gotten there by 2 buses. But on the way back, the buses were stopped by police and they opened fire. Some students were shot and killed. Those that survived shared how horrific it was. But 43 students went missing without a trace. That's right, 43 students went missing, and to this day we don't know where they are, or even if they're still alive. Now, here's the thing. Many are convinced that this whole thing was planned, orchestrated, and then covered up by the government. Investigators have linked the Mexican army to the disappearances. Investigative journalist Anal Hernandez believes that the 2 buses were secretly transporting heroin. The students aboard the bus were unaware of this. Then a drug lord intercepted the drugs. The students were witnesses and needed to be taken care of. Oh, and the government, trying to protect its army, covered this all up.
At number 2, Project Sunshine. This is by far one of the darkest scandals out there, and it's hard to believe that this is even real. In the 1950s, scientists began studying the effects of nuclear fallout on the population. After the results ascertained from Project Gabriel, it was determined that there was a specific isotope that caused the most damage to the human body, and it became Project Sunshine's mission to measure how far the isotope travels, and to do this they needed to examine the flesh and bones of cadavers as part of the experiment. But they came across a problem getting these cadavers because they needed to get permission from their next of kin, and not everyone was willing to do so. So what did they do? They stole them. This led to a lot of body snatching in places like the US and Europe, with bodies being given to support the experiment. What makes this even worse is the fact that there was a preference on younger bodies to examine strontium-90's effects on developing bones, so a lot of the stolen bodies were those from very young people. An investigation into these thefts was conducted by a British newspaper that determined that British scientists had been taking bodies from children's hospitals and were shipping them to the US. About 1,500 cadavers were donated to the project, but only about a quarter of them were actually used, making things even eerier. This all remained classified until documents were unsealed in 2001, marking the discovery of one of the most horrific events in scientific history.
And in our number 1 spot, we have the death of JFK. This next one is a theory, okay? So don't get all butthurt, but it's absolutely insane. So basically, the theory is that John F. Kennedy, the 35th president of the United States, was assassinated because he was going to expose the truth about aliens. Before you guys go crazy in the comments, let me explain. So there's this anonymous individual that claims that they worked for the CIA between 1960 to 1974. He pulled a memo from a fire when the agency was burning a bunch of sensitive files. In this memo, it said, and I quote, "You must know, Lancer has made some inquiries about our activities which we cannot allow." Now, Lancer was the president's Secret Service name. Then it basically said that if he kept doing what he was doing, then it should be wet. Wet was code for assassinated because wet was associated with blood. That's not all. So there was a man named E. Howard Hunt, who was an officer of the CIA when Kennedy was president. One of Hunt's close friends ended up asking him why JFK was assassinated. He said because he was about to give our most vital secret to the Soviet Union. When he pried further, Hunt said, "Alien presence." So there you have it, folks. Apparently the government knows about extraterrestrials and is going to extreme lengths to keep it from the public, even went as far as to kill their own president. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. Make sure you guys go check out Bree on Viper Girl. Do it. And if you guys like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, comment something down below, and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan.
And I'm Bree Room.
I'll see you when I see ya.
Bye.